Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Eliza, by chance, do you have any time after the meeting or sometime like today or tomorrow where I could just give you a call to chat about HSAC stuff?
Yes, let me check my calendar. Um, Sorry, I was just looking in May. It's not May yet.
Which spot? So
Yeah, I've got time after 12:15.
12:15.
Yeah,
Okay.
between 12:15 and like 2:30, I've got time.
Okay. Could I call you like at say one-ish?
Sure. Yeah.
And I think I still have
Mm,
your phone number, but could I trouble you to email it to me?
Absolutely. I'll do that.
All right. Thanks so much. And we'll just give it a few more moments for folks to trickle in so that we can hopefully get a quorum here.
Good morning, everyone.
We just need one more to hit quorum, so hopefully in another minute or two. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Jonathan Crooms, the current chair of the Performance Management Subcommittee, and it is 10:02 a.m. and I am calling the April meeting to order. First up, as always, is the public comment period. Does anybody wish to make a public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which would be the review and approval of the March 24 meeting minutes. Thanks again to Shantae for her great work here. Why don't we take a moment, look at the minutes, and I will ask if there are any corrections that need to be made.
Good morning, Jonathan. This is Keisha. I noticed that I was not included as in part of the person who attended the meeting on
Okay.
the attendees.
Okay, thank you so much for letting me know.
Yeah, I was wondering, it had like 4 community development on the roster, but it didn't have names beside it.
Jonathan, this is Lloyd. Good morning, everyone. I'd also like to make one suggestion for a change on the minutes, the discussion on underspending of COC funded permanent housing grants. The item D, budget amendments greater than 10%. I believe it should be budget amendments greater than 10% must be approved by HUD, not requested by HUD.
Okay, must be approved. Got it.
Correct.
Okay. And while we're talking about City of Durham staff, I know Keisha his role has changed, and maybe it might be good for all of the city staff to maybe reintroduce themselves, since there's been some changes in that way. We all know who you are. So Keisha, why don't you, I know of course, I've worked with you probably 4 or 5 years ago. You took another role, you're back. Why don't you go ahead and reintroduce yourself to us?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Keisha Barnett. I'm the current Housing Systems Coordinator within the department, replacing Melissa, who has moved on to another role, and I'll be assuming her responsibilities going forward.
And then Anthony, we'll have you introduce yourself again as well.
Good morning, folks. I'm Anthony Henderson. I'm a senior analyst with the Community Development Department, and will be assuming some or many, but not all, of Lloyd's responsibilities. Those are very big shoes to fill. So I'm glad to be here and look forward to continuing to participate.
And Jeff, for you as well.
Okay. I'm Jeff Rawlings, and of course, I'm a senior analyst as well, primarily doing coordinated entry duties and handling the by-name list prioritization for PSH and rapid housing.
All right. And Lloyd, I know we all know you, but because we don't have you much longer, I still would love to have you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Lloyd Schmeidler, also senior community development analyst in the department of in the community development department, providing primary support to this committee from the COC lead agency.
Thank you so much. All right. So hopefully, while we were doing introductions, that also gave folks a little more time to review. I did note the 2 changes there. Are there any other changes that need to be done to the minutes? Okay. Hearing none, I am ready to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. This is Eliza.
There's a motion from Eliza Matthew to approve the minutes with the 2 changes that were proposed. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Jonathan. Good morning.
All right, Tracy Stone Dino has seconded the motion. Any further discussion or edits? All right, let's move to a vote in the chat. Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you, everybody. All right, moving along to our next item, that is going to be the review of the 2024 Housing First evaluations. And I've certainly included, I believe all, but I think maybe there might be 1 or 2 evaluation that is outstanding. But I've included all the ones that we have available at this time in the email that went out this week. And I'd like to turn that over to Lloyd for some comments on the process and kind of what what he's observed, as well as open it up for some discussion afterwards.
Thank you, Jonathan. The process is wrapping up. I think the sole project evaluation that's still in process is the team that is evaluating Urban Ministries Fresh Start project. Is in the process. They have completed their site visits, and I think they're finalizing their scores before they present it to us and to the administration at Fresh Start. The other projects and other teams have all completed their evaluations. We're grateful for many of you on the in the meeting today who participated as part of an evaluation team. Others in the implementing these projects assisted with being available for the evaluation team visit. We're grateful for the hospitality that was extended to the evaluation teams by the various organizations. Certainly, I'm interested in hearing from people who participated in the evaluation. I think it was a worthwhile process. I think the organizations found it to be worthwhile. I think it was a good learning experience for all of us. I've done some initial analysis of the results of the evaluations that have been completed, doing some averaging of scores and looking at how the various projects scored. In general, I would say that by way of review, there were 5 components on the tool, correct? Housing process and structure was first. Service, housing and services was the second. Service philosophy, the third. The service array, or the variety of services available to participants, the fourth. And then the team structure and HR considerations was the fifth. In looking at the scores overall, I would say all of this information has been shared with the organizations and their leadership. Dash scored very well at a 96% level. The other projects did not score nearly that well. 2 projects were in the 72% range, and others were even as low as the mid-40s. In looking at where projects didn't score particularly well, I think they scored well with service philosophy, but the actual provision of services, what on the component is called service array, suggests that there's lots of opportunities for projects to help participants make more connections to services in the Durham community. I think in general, there's a feeling that a perception that there are a lot of services available to take advantage of, but the case managers and the staff that are implementing these projects are perhaps could be doing more to connect people to the services that participants are interested in connecting with. This is reflected on very low scores on the service array component, as well as the second component of housing and services. So the service philosophy, I think, is strong. I think in general, there was a sense among all of the teams that projects are committed to housing first approaches, and housing first structure scored reasonably well. HR scored reasonably well with a 74% rating overall, average among the participants, but actually implementing and making services available. Obviously, services need to be um, um, participated in on a voluntary basis. We can't force participants to participate in services if they don't want to, but there's, I think, opportunities to engage with participants in the various projects and see what their interests are, as well as exploring with them what their needs are to move towards greater independence, particularly in permanent supportive housing projects. What are the supports that the clients feel they need and want, and how can the projects help make more connections to the services. There's certainly not an expectation that here at the Community Development Department, or I think in general, in the COC leadership, that these projects provide all of the services themselves. When we look at the actual applications for COC funds, the various services that are listed in the COC project application itself, many times projects do indicate that services will be provided by community partners, and that's great. The challenge can be around really helping get project participants connected to the services that those various community partners may have to offer. So I think there's a lot of opportunities within services. And again, the idea of housing first, sometimes it's been said that housing first does not mean housing only, but it means housing people and then providing the wraparound services that the clients will need to maintain and sustain housing, and perhaps over time, rapidly, certainly in the rapid rehousing projects, helping participants move towards self-sufficiency. But even within permanent supportive housing projects, where the housing subsidy is open-ended, many clients can move towards a reduced need for services and perhaps be transitioned to housing subsidy, like housing choice voucher or Section 8 voucher that does not include the variety of services that would be available. So that's kind of my overview. We do have two sessions, evaluation sessions planned. One specifically for the evaluators of the projects, and then one for the housing providers or the providers of the project. But would welcome any additional comments by anyone on the call today.
Yeah, the floor is open for comments, thoughts, reflections on the experience, the process, and even suggestions. I know obviously we'll have the feedback session, but the floor is open for any follow-up questions or discussions that anyone might like to have about it.
I'm just wondering if there are any thoughts on, I know, Lloyd, you made mention of many of the scores, not many, or you said something about the scores being kind of lower in the service or rank category. If that's something that's kind of been across the board, or are there trends about that? Are there any thoughts about that from the evaluators, or why that may have been kind of the lower area that people scored on? Or that project scored on?
Lloyd, I think that was to you.
It was to me. Okay, I thought it was to the evaluators in general, but
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
Yeah,
no,
just
no.
anybody, any of the evaluators particularly, because if that's kind of the common theme that those areas where the scored the lowest across projects, I'm wondering, what,
Yeah,
why?
Shante, what I would say, is that, um, as evaluators, the same evaluators did not look at every program, right? So we had different teams of evaluators that looked at different programs. And so as evaluators, we did not have privy to what another team and another program's evaluation scores were. But what I will say, is that there are some trends we're seeing, at the lead agency level. And I would say that that probably has to do with higher staff to case manager ratios, difficulty keeping case management staff in place, um, a lack of sort of a consistent way of thinking about and providing case management across the system, because sometimes organizations do it differently than other organizations, or may be more or less comprehensive than another organization. So there are opportunities. There's a phrase in Durham that I've heard outside of this area that says that we are resource rich and collaboration poor. And I think what that means is kind of what we're seeing in regard to the service array. There are many, many, many services available in the community, but because of capacity and staffing and other issues, we're not necessarily seeing that providers feel able to take advantage of those. And so I think that's something that needs to be looked at, across the board. But I hope that helps give you some insight, because again, as evaluators, I didn't look across the board at other, we only looked at the programs that we were evaluating, not other teams. So I think hopefully that helps in some way. And as we go on, and as I work with Lloyd throughout the rest of the month, if anything comes up that I think is important to share in this regard, I'd be happy to do that. So I hope that helps.
Right. Tracy's also got her hand raised there. So go ahead, Tracy.
No, Eliza was before me. Go ahead, Eliza.
Go ahead, Eliza. I'm sorry, I didn't see the hand.
No problem. It's hiding in the corner where it is also brown. I was one of the evaluators. I would also say the rubric that we used was pretty direct. So I think that was the other piece. Is I'm not sure how much of this was really interpretation of the evaluators, rather the questions that were pretty specific that either folks were doing or they were not. So I would say that would be the other piece that's coming up for me.
Right. Thank you, Eliza. Go ahead, Tracy.
Okay, sorry, I'm off camera today. Overall, I think it's good to put this in context and compare it to our housing first assessment last year compared to this year. I thought the questions and the process was very succinct in terms of what we were looking for. Definitely in terms of, what we say versus what's documented versus what we're practicing, and also just the realities of who we work with, who are dealing with chronic homeless on a continuum. And so I thought it was an overall really good process. The team that came to visit us on site was really pleasant, very professional. They asked follow-up questions, and I thought that was, just a testament to them trying to at least put some context around not only the rubrics that was used, but also the documentation that was shared with them beforehand. So I thought overall it was a good process. I think there's always room for improvement, but each time we do this, we'll probably have lessons learned in terms of how we can go about improving these processes to kind of drill down on how we can better serve the most vulnerable members in our community, and also how we can operate as organizations across the continuum to best serve them and work with the lead agency.
Thank you, Tracy. And I see Lloyd's hand is raised, or was.
yes, Thank you, Jonathan. Yes, I wanted to acknowledge, by way of introduction, Melba Henry, who's also a senior community development analyst in the department. Melba, you came on after Jonathan had invited our team to introduce themselves. So why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Melva Henry, as Lloyd just said, and I'm a member of our super homeless team. Glad to be a member, proud to be a member, and also proud to be associated with the HSAC and COC.
Very good. Thank you, Melba. Melba's been primarily on our team working on HOPWA, Housing Opportunities for People with AIDS, which is not a COC funded project, but it is a very important housing project that the Community Development Department does administer in cooperation with a couple community partners in Durham. So it's an entitlement that the city has. But we operate for, I think, about 5 counties in this region of North Carolina.
That's correct.
Very good. So thanks for those comments, everyone. I would remind the committee and all of us that Durham, I think, has gotten a bit ahead of the curve on evaluating housing first implementations. People have been around for a while will know that it had been a part of our semi-annual evaluation just by reviewing the documentation or the policies and procedures of projects. And then last year we did beginning in the first quarter, we did a cross COC evaluation process with our COC partners in Orange County and Wake County. And that was a major undertaking. This also was a major undertaking to organize. I say we've gotten ahead of the curve. One of the things, I think for the first time, that HUD put into the COC Notice of Funding Opportunity in 2023 was requiring an annual evaluation of the housing first implementation of the COC funded project. So we have been doing that, and I think this process continues to strengthen that effort. So that obviously, as someone mentioned, I think one of the questions around the tool, and part of perhaps the reason we tried to design the tool as we revised it was so that it would hopefully reduce or increase inter-rater reliability so that there's less subjectivity, so that the scores of the various projects could really hopefully be comparable to what another team of evaluators might score the project. Obviously, you don't know that until you kind of use a similar tool like this for a number of years with different evaluators. So this was an initial effort, certainly not the be all and end all. Certainly can be improved. We did notice some challenges with the tool, and kind of reflective of the big challenge, I would say, is that it's kind of reflective of HUD's own guidance, is that HUD says participation services needs to be voluntary. On the other hand, it says projects can expect participants to meet with a case manager at least once a month, and that those two kind of statements are a bit in conflict with each other, and that was kind of reflected on a couple of different questions on the tool, and that perhaps will need to be revised if the tool is used again in coming years. Any other reflections on the tool or the process at this point? Anybody wants to share?
If I can, I was going to share. I'm not sure if other teams had a similar experience, but I know for UMD Fresh Start, they were able to get a couple of program participants to participate in the interview process. And I thought that it was really nice to have participants who actually were in the program share feedback and listen along to a lot of the questions being answered, and they could actually in real time discuss how some of those services happened in real time for the program. So I thought that was a really nice part, at least of our process, my team's process for the interviews for the Housing First evaluation. And I think that if other teams had a similar experience, I'd love to know how they felt about that, or if they got any additional information from those interviews that was helpful for the scoring.
For Melissa's question, did anyone else talk with participants as part of their evaluation? Okay, sounds like that, that was a really good thing to do, and maybe something that, other evaluation teams could be encouraged to do. I know scheduling is always a challenge, but I'm glad to hear that you all were able to do that. And it sounds like that really gave an additional perspective that might not otherwise have been obtained. Tracy, I saw your hand up and then I saw it go down.
Yes, I was actually going to ask the same question Melissa shared about whether or not any of the participants of the programs had an opportunity to participate in any way. I know last year during the Housing First assessment, we tried to include as well as incentivize participants to, take on a panel questions. I don't know if they did some via Zoom or over the phone, but I didn't know whether or not this was a part of this process as well.
I mean, I can certainly say from our group, we did not speak with participants, but I think in an ideal, sort of ideal world where we have more time, I certainly would have liked to have been able to do that. But I'm really glad to hear that UMD provided those participants.
All right. Yeah, I think that is a good practice. We did not emphasize that, I guess, in preparing for this evaluation, partly because there's the issue of encouraging compensation of people with lived experience when they do participate in a process like this. And the Community Development Department, as the lead agency, was not prepared to provide compensation to the individuals that would have that might have participated in the evaluation, and we felt that to ask the organizations being evaluated to recruit participants and compensate them for their time would have been a conflict of interest for the organization. So there's that challenge of if the organization itself is and providing compensation to the individuals, and the individuals are aware of that, then it can reduce some of the objectivity or encourage the participants to give glowing ratings of the project because they are receiving some compensation from the organization itself. So that's kind of again, it's a challenge in some ways to arrange that so that you're getting really honest feedback from the participants that's not tinged in any way by their relationship with the organization.
Renee's got her hand up. Go ahead, Renee.
Oh, I just wanted to say that our group did not have the opportunity to hear from participants in the program, and I appreciate Lloyd's giving us a more rounded viewpoint there. But this was my first opportunity in this to undertake this type of review, and it was I felt that it was a very good experience for all concerned, I hope, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to grow from the feedback that has been received.
Right.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, I just, as chair, want to thank all the evaluators for taking time to make that part of your schedule, and appreciate you making that part of your work and contributions to the HSAC and to the well-being of each of the projects. And also would just encourage folks to attend the feedback sessions that that Lloyd has set up, so that they can get a little bit more feedback on the process and plan for future ones. So that puts that topic to rest for now. We do have a little bit of a change in the agenda. Item number 5, we had anticipated that we would be able to talk a little bit about the first semi-annual performance evaluation of COC funded projects. Unfortunately, we're not ready to do that yet. So we're going to postpone that item for now, and we'll move to the last item of our agenda, which is a review of the proposed performance improvement template. So just as a reminder, as this committee may remember, we really wrestled with whether or not we should move the minimum score from 65 to 70%, and having those conversations in which we eventually did vote to do that. What came about in the conversation was that we needed maybe a better understanding of what the performance improvement process would look like for any projects that we may consider for in the future. And so the community development team has put together this template with feedback from the group and discussions from earlier meetings, and is now here for your consideration. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to you, Lloyd, if you wanted to say some things about the template, and then we can open for discussion and questions.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I searched. I'm trying to, I'll share my screen if that's okay, and pull up the performance improvement plan template. Hopefully, Jonathan, can you see it? Okay, got a thumbs up from some people. Thank you. So, unfortunately, when I did some research online, I could not find performance improvement plans specifically for organizations or projects like those that we would be asking to submit to develop and submit a performance improvement plan. But I found something similar to this, or one that is used by organizations with employees. And so I modified it to hopefully meet the needs of the committee and the Durham COC. My sense is, and those of you who have been involved with implementing projects may agree, may disagree, but my sense is that in working to improve performance, an organization or an employee for that matter cannot focus on more than 2 or 3 performance areas at any one time. If we're trying to improve performance across the board, it really helps to kind of focus that desire and to focus energy on some specific areas. And so the idea of areas of concern would be to, although there might be multiple areas where a project lost a significant number of points, might make sense to, in my view, to focus on those where they lost the most points, and just for the next year, focus on those areas, make improvements in those areas, and then move on to other areas that are challenges. Trying to get at, in the areas of concern box, identifying those areas and then really looking at the root causes. Because, for example, if we're concerned about that the project is not serving enough people with high needs, we're not targeting the project to the right people. A root cause of that could be, and I'm not suggesting this is the reality in Durham, but it could be that a root cause is that our by name list processes and our referral processes are not identifying the right people for a particular project. And so the work of improving performance there would be to really try to work to improve the referral processes to the project, right? And not so much perhaps something that is within the purview of the project itself per se. So the root causes are really very important. Then improvement goals would be try to emphasize, as perhaps we've all heard for many years now, that our goals should be smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-oriented. So to again define one or more concrete goals, perhaps one for each of the 2 or 3 performance areas might be sufficient for an organization to really concentrate on. And then the action plan would be, okay, if that's the goal, what are the specific activities that are going to help a project over time improve that goal? When are we going to start? When's the deadline for actually making improvements? And then the signature section would simply be an opportunity for the person who is leading a particular COC funded project to sign off on it, as well as the executive director or CEO of the organization. And then the approval by the performance management committee also would be noted after this committee has had a chance to review the performance improvement plan and approve it. So the idea of the approval by performance management does raise the issue of that there could be opportunities, well, there could be situations in which an initial draft of a performance improvement plan is presented to the committee, but the committee and its leadership, and perhaps the COC lead agency leadership as well, says this doesn't quite measure up to what we want to see happen in this project, right? And so they might send it back to the organization and the project to say, we're not ready to approve this. Let's dialogue and make some suggested changes, perhaps tightening up goals, tightening up the discussion about what are the root causes, and certainly perhaps tightening up the description of the activities that the project is actually going to undertake. That would be an overview of this template. And it can be amended, improved upon, certainly not the last word on a performance improvement plan for any of our projects. So we'd welcome suggestions.
All right, floor is open for comments, questions, feedback. Well, I'm a little surprised we don't have any takers yet here. Usually when it comes to evaluations, Committee members usually have opinions around that. So how about first impressions? Does this look like something that could be workable for us? Okay, go ahead, Tracy.
Lloyd, could you continue to share your screen? I think it went away on
Sure.
my end. I don't know if it was me or
It
you.
did, yeah, I stopped sharing because I can't see your faces that way as well.
Okay.
But it's,
My question was, would only those two projects be applicable to this PIP plan? Because I see PSH and rapid rehousing.
well, this would be specifically for COC funded permanent housing projects. So those are the two types that we currently have operational in Durham.
So the like urban ministries, what do they fall under permanent supportive housing versus emergency shelter?
Their COC funded project is Fresh Start, which is actually a rapid rehousing project, although the target population is people who are chronically homeless. But they're using a rapid rehousing model to focus that project on people who are defined as chronically homeless, but do not have the perhaps intense service needs that a person who would be referred to permanent supportive housing might receive in a PSH project like Williams Square or Streets to Home. And the other point being also that we don't have enough permanent supportive housing for many of the people with intense needs. So they are looking to move people through the rapid rehousing project, even though they're chronically homeless.
Okay. And also, and so projects who receive ESG funding, they too would not be subject to this because they would fall under one or two types of projects, but wouldn't necessarily fall into maybe having a PIP. I'm just trying to think of all the different projects that are under the umbrella.
Right, not currently.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? So I'll offer my comments. I do remember being part of the committee when we did do a couple of performance improvement plans. I like this template because I think it's direct and fairly, it's not terribly complicated. One thing that I have thought about when we've done the performance improvement plans in the past is, of course, we don't want to add any cumbersome paperwork, unnecessary cumbersome work to a project that already needs to do, work on improving. So, I think kind of more simple, to the point, brief. I think that's probably the best thing we can do as a committee, but those are just my thoughts on this. Vega, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Lloyd, for this information. And to concur with Jonathan, this template is straight to the point. And I'm sure once folks start to work with it, it may be that some adjustments would need to be made, but just for a starting point, I think this is helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Other questions? Well, hearing none, I will pose a question to the committee. Do we feel like we would are in a place where we want to adopt this today, or do we need some more time with it?
I think it looks good. I think it speaks to SMART goals, specifies, the areas of concerns, improvement goals, action plans with items that would determine, like, in terms of dates and outcomes or outputs. And so I think it's very succinct and look like it would be user friendly for us to use.
I concur with that. I think our earlier concerns have been addressed very well, Lloyd, and I appreciate your work on this.
Thank you.
So hearing some of the feedback, it sounds like we may have potentially have a motion to approve this. If we do, and if someone makes a motion, I would also ask that they make a motion to be part of that when we start using it. So do we start using it, right away with the spring evaluation, or do we, start using it in the fall? I mean, I see no reason. I don't know if we're going to even have, of course, I don't know the results yet from the spring evaluations. So I don't know yet if that may be something we may need to use this spring. But I think we probably should have a date of when we want to start using it as part of the motion.
Jonathan, were you referring to fall 2024?
Yeah, so when we talked about when the minimum performance score would be raised to 70, we voted that it would take effect come fall 2024, since we were, it was obviously, very close to the spring evaluation. So we give projects more time so that we can share that information with them, they can prepare themselves. I'm just merely suggesting that that we also give thought to when we want this to be used, and if right away, or if we want to say we'll start using this come the fall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I see no reason not to use it right away if we need it. But I also, again, I leave that to the committee. Does anybody wish to make a motion?
I will make the motion. I'm just concerned that I believe we previously had mentioned that we would start in the fall, and so I was just wanting to make sure we were all in accord on that. Not.
Go ahead, Lloyd. I think you also were going to say something too.
Yeah, I was going to share that I think the monitoring, evaluation and ranking policy, I think envisioned performance improvement plans being asked of projects that didn't meet the satisfactory performance threshold that's currently at 65%. That they would do that after the winter or spring evaluation and have 1 year to implement that. Again, organizational change, project change takes some time. Part of the reason we are doing 2 evaluations per year with the structure that we've had is to kind of regularly measure performance. And the first one, primary consequence of it would be to recognize projects that need to improve performance, as well as recognize projects that are outstanding performers based on the evaluation tool. The primary purpose of the second evaluation during the COC funding competition, the NOFO, is to rank the projects for funding recommendations to HUD. I mean, secondarily, you could use it for identifying unsatisfactory performance. Generally, within the competition, the lowest scoring projects are at risk of losing funding because the way HUD has the COC competition structured currently, a portion of COC funding is placed in tier 2, which is at risk of being lost in the funding competition.
Okay, go ahead, Anthony, go ahead.
Just really quickly, I am a fan of this document. I agree with everyone else that it's simple, it's direct, and easy to understand. And so, I also am a fan of being able to implement it in the fall, versus right away. I think, what I am concerned about is, given our open discussion earlier, that most, organizations are struggling in a particular area. If that is something that could lead to everybody suddenly being on a PIP, I think implementing it in the fall will allow us a few months to provide some, what it sounds like is necessary TA to everyone. And Jeffrey and I have already started to set up organizational and TA visits with different organizations that will be happening and starting within the next couple of weeks. So I think we can make this conversation and process an initial part of it to say, here's where, we were able to look at your performance, and here are some things you can implement that might help avoid getting a PIP when that process starts in the fall, or some version of that. I just don't want to start a process where, we say, yes, let's do this document, and then all of a sudden, if appropriate, the whole continuum is on a PIP. I'd rather have like a little bit of time between, time for us to work with organizations, and spend some time with them, and maybe connect some dots, and we may be able to avoid it altogether. And then if not, then I think it will in the fall be more clear where we focus this document inside of an organization with their performance. So I hope that helps.
It certainly does. And so for me, the only reason I raise it is that, as of right now, the minimum score is 65%, right? So we're getting ready to do the spring evaluation. So the only question in my mind is, when do we use the tool? If we need it, we may not even, need it after the spring evaluation. So it sounds like, some of the feedback I've heard, maybe also letting it come into play in the fall would be the preference of the committee.
Well, I do, Jonathan, think it's important to adopt the tool just to have it as the process. And if we adopt it for implementation, beginning in the fall, then the process is already in place if we need it, right? Mm-hmm. Does that sound right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, after more discussion, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. This is Eliza. I'll make a motion to implement the PIP tool starting in the fall of 2024.
Okay.
And I will second it.
We have a motion from Eliza Matthew to adopt the PIP template to be implemented in the fall 2024, and we have a seconded motion from Renee Vaughn. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, well, let's vote in the chat box. Okay. The motion carries and the performance improvement plan has been approved. So thank you all for your good conversation and good work on that. That brings us to the end of the meeting, or at least of the agenda. Does anyone have any announcements that they would like to share?
I will share one, just in case, and it is public, even though Lloyd's here, just in case you haven't heard. We are publicly celebrating his retirement next week on Wednesday with opportunities to drop in to offer your support and, congrats. There will be some lunchtime goodies and some dessert, and the time is 12 to 2. So if by chance you are not on one of the lists that received this already and you're on this call, please feel free to be invited and to plan to stop by next Wednesday, April 17th from 12 to 2 at our CDD office. And we will be, kind of celebrating with Lloyd and offering him the best as he transitions to his new life, which I'm sort of jealous about. I still got a few more years, but and he has agreed, only come if he agrees to be available to me over the next year as I try to fill some of these shoes he's been wearing. So just making sure you all know about it and are open to participating.
Absolutely. A wonderful announcement. And Lloyd, I don't know if are you comfortable sharing what your official retirement date is? Because mainly I need to know so I can stop sending you work.
Yes, my official retirement date is the last day of this month, April 30th.
Okay.
May 1st will be my first day of retirement from full-time employment, and I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Anthony, for your announcement. We welcome the opportunity to greet each of you personally on April 17th.
Yeah, I look forward to being there and celebrating with you as well.
Thank you very much. Been a good run.
I also have an announcement. At the end of this month, on Saturday, April 27th, the Durham Veteran Resource Fair is going to take place at Greystone Church. And I can forward out the invitation for it. But if you know of any homeless veterans, any under-resourced veterans, we'll have all sorts of vendors there where, maybe they can get connected with some resources. We'll be there. The VA is going to be there. So basically it's an annual event, and it's from roughly about 8:30 to about 1:30-ish. And, if you know any veterans, send them there, and we'll look forward to meeting them and assisting them then.
Jonathan, will you make sure to send out the flyer?
I will.
So that we can share it? Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other announcements? Hearing none, I'm sure we all could use an extra half an hour back in our day. I am happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Vega Swepson. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
All right, we have a motion from Vega to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
And a second from Tracy. Committee, we are adjourned. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great one.
Have a great day.
You too.
Goodbye, everyone.